discussion about pitching viewer and how you can use it or ideas for lessons and things like that. So right now, just kind of feedback on the exercise that you did when we're starting.
So just take 2 minutes to sort of wrap up, and when you're done, if you want to go ahead and type in the chat box that you're ready and ready to pull yourself away from the activity. I know there's been several questions coming in, so we've been trying to answer those. They've been really great questions.
Okay, I think we'll get started with answering some of these now. And the first one I see here is from Denise, and she asks, scan through the data library tab, are there any layers that address the geographic distribution of diseases or their vectors? And the answer is no, there are not. But that is a great suggestion, and I think we do want to incorporate some of those. Again, in this next iteration, we'll start adding in some of the current geographic distribution of diseases. Thank you for that suggestion.
And right, and Mark, if I recall correctly, I think CSUN was wrapping up sort of an iteration of a data set that looked at some of the diseases and the geographic distributions, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, CSUN has some of those in the works, and there's a sister institute here at Wilmot campus called the IRI, International Research Institute. They do a lot of work with medium and long-term climate prediction and climate health around the world, especially in developing regions. And they have some interesting data that we'd like to incorporate in here.
Climate change and what
We're just waiting for another question. So.
Let's see, I'll get another one in here. So here's, let's see, so here's one. So how do I get the names of the individual countries on my map? Africa has more than 50 plus countries. Don't remember all of them. So how do I display the names of the features?
Okay, well, I'm showing it on my screen now. I'm showing off global agriculture. And this is actually something that is built into the Worldwing viewer that our tool is based on. So it comes out of the box from NASA with this political boundaries and place names. And we're a little bit limited into how well you can label things. So for instance, here it's just showing Africa label. And as I zoom in, some of the country labels should start appearing. So there, once I'm at this scale threshold, the labels start appearing. And we're just kind of limited. We can't alter that scale threshold so that the country labels will appear all the African countries at this scale. We just have to zoom in to clear it does show.
And another question related to that, Mark, on the labels is labels for waters and water bodies.
Again, there is a default set from the Mediterranean Sea and North Lakes. But we do water layer, resources, global freshwater bodies. But there is no attribute table to label on these more detailed set. Is that another one?
Yeah, so here's sort of another comment. I like how the lesson is laid out as with the suggested time completion. I'm pretty sure that my students would require more time, maybe even twice as much time. I'll try this week and see how this goes. And I think that's a good point. One of those of, have students been exposed to this, have they not? It's really interesting to see sort of the time frame that you think your students need to complete. Because you're right, every student is different. So it's a good thing is to really be able to run through it first and to be able to understand how long it takes for you to do it, as well as knowing your students and how that goes. Because I think the first time someone uses this, all of you, thinking about your first time, thinking about actually coming back to it for a few more times, you start to get the hang of where things are and where to go So here's another one with regard to precipitation predictions. What exactly is the difference between wet, mild, and dry? And so I think I can answer that one. But looking through the climate model projections, the different scenarios were run using different variables. And so what those actually take a look at is what using the base data and running the scenarios in terms of present day, future, and future for 2051 to 2060. What that's actually looking at is taking a look at all these different variables and how they might actually project into the future. And so the dry, wet, and mid conditions are actually using a variety of different variables to take a look at what would the conditions be if precipitation within this range was to be on the drier side of precipitation change. And so because we're dealing with projections and model data, we can't know precisely exactly what route we're going to be. So we have a margin of error, if you will, which these projections are being followed. And so what these different models try and accomplish is to be able to incorporate some of that variability within these data sets to be able to examine that there's a variety of different climate models out there, and there's a variety of different factors that go into each one of these. And that we're just looking at one scenario here, but there's 3 different types. So looking at what a drier precipitation model might look like, given the current as usual. A wet precipitation model might look, given the current business as usual model, and then also what a mid one might look like. So, because when we're talking about projections in the future, we have to have a range. So similar to what they do with hurricanes and projecting where that path is, they show in sort of the route that the hurricane could potentially take. So these models sort of try and incorporate the low, the mid, and the high, or the dry, the mid, and the wet variations that could possibly be seen. So I hope that answered that one, but it's also being able to try and expose students to some of the different models and the climate models that exist exist, and that there's not just one model that is used to explore the we've limited it to a few and used. So here's another one, and I'm getting through some of these. Is there a lesson that incorporates changes in precipitation and temperature? Is there a lesson that incorporates changes in precipitation and temperature?
As Caroline to that one, she's been working on some of the new exercises.
स्कूल में दिखा दो भैया 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 स्कूल में दिखा दो
भेजना है नासा
ये भेजेंगे ये हमने देखा
मोबाइल बंद कर
वही तो इतनी देर में चला रहे थे और सोचे क्या बन रही है
Great. So here's another one, and we'll just keep on going through some of these. Some of these are comments, some of these are questions. With regard to freshwater availability per capita, what are the units for the numbers in the key? And so I think with some of these, we've tried to incorporate units within many of the data sets. And if the units aren't included within there, that's I think where we want to actually go and take a look at some of the metadata to be able to access that information. And you're showing how to access that information.
This one's a little bit deeper, we have to search for it.
And this actually chimes into another question as well, or a comment that was taken in being able to provide not just hyperlinks within the metadata. One of the things that we all deal with, I think, on a continuous basis is that we have websites and URLs that continuously change. And so how do we provide that information? But also how do we educate and work with our students to help them understand that just a URL isn't a citation to be able to document, but rather the institute or the organization that's behind that URL is actually the way to cite and to sort that information. So we'll take a few more that get into this, and then I know I want to sort of talk about, we've got questions that are coming in, but also ideas of incorporating these in the classroom. So hearing how some of you might plan on using this in the classroom. What other natural disasters activities are in the works? So we've got some hurricanes and looking at sea level rising. So those are in the works. I think those are the ones that I have on the top of my head right now that I've been doing.
Right.
And here's another really good question. And I think this gets into the scale of the data which we're looking at. And so the question coming from Martha is, do wet, mild, and dry models incorporate regional changes, such as the drier in the southwest and wetter in the northeast, into these climate models? And Mark, I think this chimes into the conversation and presentation we had last year in the workshop, is that the current data models that we've used for this are applicable so we haven't necessarily incorporated those regional variations that also exist. And when you're looking at model data and scale data, for these, it's not necessarily the best to chime into your specific city or your specific town, because the data that's being used is more at a global scale. So to be able to put this region-wide or within regions of the country.
Yeah, I'd like to also add, that's exactly correct, that we are looking more at large regions throughout the world, looking for comparison to other areas. But I did want to comment that this project is just one of many that have been funded by NASA under their new innovations in climate change education. NICE program in NASA. And some of the other projects are looking at developing data at along with downscaling those climate models to look at things in a much closer, smaller scale. So as those things become available, we'll have a big boom in some of our data sets.
And that's something I think we can provide in the chat dialog box, as well as the follow-up, is the link to be able to access the NICE projects and the various other projects that are going on. You're right, Mark, as you mentioned, you're just one of many that are being able to provide this information out to others. And so there's a wealth of resources that are available to us there as well. Okay, so I know that there's a few more questions that we're still getting responded to, but I know we're sort of closing in on some time, and I really want to sort of shift the direction of this question. Really start to think about all the you and how you might use these in your educational settings. So thinking about your experience here, we said one might have to increase the time for the students to be able to use, but also to be able to look at some of the others. So sort of throwing that back to you, sort of your ideas for using this change in the classroom. What might you do, and how might you do it? So you can go ahead and type those into the chat box too, to be able to sort of generate a conversation that way. Okay, so we're starting to see some of them come on in and sort of read some of these as well. For students on the East Coast, applying this tool to Hurricane Sandy may be one way to incorporate recent natural disasters into the lesson. As a way for students to engage with the material and connect with their own experiences. And I think that's a very good comment in looking at, connecting and helping students connect what's happening through these data sets, what they experience in their own personal lives, to really to make that connection. Here's another one that's come in. For students who do not have the option to have their own computer and computer lab readily available to do assignments, could a program like this be integrated into a local public library?
Ms. Mark, I'll take that one. And yes, I don't see why it shouldn't be able to be used in the library. It is a certified program, so the systems administrator shouldn't have any issue with it having any viruses or anything. So downloading that. Yeah, that's a great idea. It's put out to the local library systems.
I agree that, I think not just beyond the local library, but perhaps there's museums or other exhibits where students or others of the general public can engage. And so that's a matter of talking with the local library, talking with some of the access points of the students that we need to go and access this information online. Because as we mentioned, all it needs is an internet connection and a few standards, and then they can pull it up. So it's just really making sure that the computers are compatible. So here's another one. I would like to tie in current events. If I open up the paper or online news source and see that there's a hot story somewhere, I can incorporate change viewer into the discussion. And let's see where the kids take it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know we've been very focused on the issues of climate change, but we can certainly bring this in as a tool for discussing many of the a lot of context.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that ability to really, the way I look at this is that there's access to so much information just right at our fingertips. So any news story or anything that really helps students connect what's happening in their environment to these things, it's really a great way to use it. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's more than just climate. It's really stretched to expand in all different directions of climate and the social side of things as well. Is there a resource that compares and contrasts the different climate models? Maybe something about the assumptions they are based on, variables included, etc. And I'm not sure if that's in reference to the data sets here within this project, sort of some of the models, or some of the larger models that are being some of the other models that we haven't incorporated here. And yes, there are, and that's where we go out to the NICE project website, so NASA Innovation and Climate Education. There's other groups out there that are providing these detailed information about some of the climate models and making it easier for our students and for the general public to understand how do I understand the difference between climate models and what is shown. So the NICE resource is a really good one to go on. And just like this, there's also a variety of other opportunities for learning and more information and more. So what the great thing that has been about with this project is that the partners are actually able to come across from both NASA funded projects, NSF funded projects, NOAA funded projects. They're working on climate education initiatives to be able to share some of the resources that are going on. And so this is a really great resource to explore the development of information. And as you can see up on the screen, being able to pull up the NICE website. So we can also put this in the chat dialog box to everyone as well. I was thinking that with advanced classes, you can have students choose variables that they wish to explore and make predictions how they might change in the future with regard to the business as usual model of quality of life and population. Yeah, and looking at that and thinking that truly, the idea behind this change was to really get students and educators started down a path of starting how do I make some of this connection once we do maybe one activity or two activities is really opening it up. And I think seeing what some of the students and all of you as well are up with. Because one of the questions earlier was also, if I develop an activity, is there a way that I can share this with everyone? And yes, that is. Right now, it's currently, if you send it to Mark or I, or the contact information on the website, we're looking into being able to submit something automatically from the applicant. But right now, just send it to us and we'll be able to share it with others. Not only what you guys develop, but also what you'll see your kids exploring, and the students exploring as well will be great to be able to share with others. Comparison of soil nutrient availability and precipitation, food production, and future agriculture. Another great idea. I would like to use this material to develop a local project. Students could identify activities that they can perform, such as planting trees. That's great. And so I think one of those, looking at the global scale first, and started to understand what and be able to think about where they might be able to do that locally, and at that point start to bring in some other data sets you can be able to examine and look at. For my AP environmental class, they should be able to use this activity pretty much as it is. How do I proceed getting the software loaded onto the school's computers? The content of climate change is such a large part of the this information being more up to date with the textbooks is great for students to use. And this is sort of continuation. Our school district does not look favorable to just downloading and I think like this gets into and Mary perhaps this is a conversation that we can have as well after, but thinking that it's downloading, but it's also in some ways it's a program and it acts more like a document that you can save onto your machine without that connection. And it's not necessarily requiring installation, which gets around some of the administrative privileges of installing the program, but truly acts like, in some ways, a document that I can launch out to a specific internet browser. So rather than using the internet browser, it's a separate shortcut, if you will. But yeah, I was going to follow up on that one to help get that, because I think you're right. Having access to this information is great for students.
I think we encourage you to give us some feedback. So as you do go to your administrators and try and get this to work on your local systems, if you can let us know that really is how much of an issue that is. We're definitely trying to minimize that as a problem. Amy and I both go back quite a ways on trying to bring geospatial technology into the classroom. One of the big obstacles we always had in the past was working with very heavy, large software programs that required licensing and tech support. That was a big stumbling block. So we went this route with a very lightweight browser client, trying to get around that, and we're hoping to have some success there.
Great, and I think, Mark, if you still have the change viewer up, I think we might end on this one, and then sort of take any final comments or questions. as we're sort of closing to the end of time. But one of the questions, and this is a great one, is what does the vertical exaggeration bar on the bottom do?
I was waiting for someone to ask that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, this is kind of a pseudo 3D globe, so we can turn around this way, and we'll take a look at the Himalayas. And there's we can bring this up and start to see the mountains rising there in the whole Tibetan Plateau. So it gives us a little bit better look at that 3D view of the globe. Zoom in there.
Right, and so one of the things I think of this and say, okay, if we're talking about precipitation changes, and we're talking about water resources, or if we're looking at food security or flooding, for example, we can start to understand the topographic features on the Earth's surface will impact sort of some of these south of the Himalayas. Those that are on the northern side of the Himalayas aren't going to actually see that water because the water won't go up the hill and over the mountain. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It's one of those features that the more you get to play around with it, the more sort of the ideas that start to generate what you can do. And here's a final one, and perhaps maybe this is something that we can follow up with in a follow-up conversation as well, is could I overlay topo maps in the viewer? So that gets into one of the things that's on the data library tab, and I don't want to go into this too much right now, but in the data library tab, you do have the option to add a few additional data sets, but it's a little bit trickier than just adding one outright. So I think we'll hold off to that one until a follow-up. But you can access some additional information. It's just a matter of how that data is served up and by group. So it's not. So we'll follow up on that one here a little bit afterwards. But so I know we're wrapping up to the end of the time, and there's one other comment here that goes back to our previous conversation about admin and installing this on school districts. And one of the comments from another participant, Denise, said that I think administrators would be more likely to allow downloads if they understood clearly the classroom and learning impact of using these.
I think we'll have to have another webinar for tech admins at schools.
Yeah, I think that's a really, for those of you that can chime in, so thinking about using this or installing this in the classroom, would that be something that would be helpful and useful? And two, obviously, I don't think admins have 3 hours that they could dedicate to this, but if we had something that was either a 5 or 10 minute video to show this perhaps offline where they can access it on their own, or would it be helpful for some of them to actually sit down and maybe be 20 minutes of their time. So you can chat those into the dialogue box. Mark, do you have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, just two things. One is, of course, we'd like to keep the conversation going with all of you, so if you come up with ideas or encounter any issues, please feel free to email myself or Amy. And I do want to mention, I don't think we've announced it before, that we did schedule a follow-up to this webinar August 26th. And where we set aside about an hour of time if you want to come back and show us some things or have additional questions or ask us to do this.
That's great, Mark. And yeah, so we'll send out that information as well, sort of after this to everyone.
And then the last thing on my list here is that we do have a survey for today. And can you give the details on how they can access that?
Yes, I think Anita, I think you can go ahead and share that with everyone through the chat dialog box. And that will give everyone the opportunity to fill it out right now. That would be great. And if not, you'll also get an email reminding you. Please fill it out, because as part of this, the NASA project, to be able to get your feedback back on how this went, how it worked, but also for us to learn what can we incorporate or what can we change to make this experience and make the tool better for all. So if you can take a few minutes and fill that out, that would be great. And we will follow up here with all of you later. I think we can stay on for a few more minutes. If any of you want to chat, any questions or any last remaining comments, some of these questions that are in here, we'll be able to follow up with you afterwards. So, from my side, I want to say thank you for your time this afternoon or morning or wherever you might be. And we look forward to hearing from all of you on how you choose to use this and your ideas and thoughts about this. So thank you from my end.
Same here. Thanks everybody, and hopefully get to meet you someday.
Thanks for filling out the survey, and we'll be in contact with you afterwards. And have a great day.
Great night. वैसे मैं यहाँ पे करने क्या है? अरे अगला दिन ही हो गया ग्रेट रिकॉर्डिंग करा रहे हो नाइट आउट अभी बोले थोड़ा
मैंने बैठे रहो रिकॉर्डिंग चल रही है
अभी नहीं उसका मंगाएंगे सॉफ्टवेयर का डेमो टाइमिंग अब तो स्वीट ड्रिंक भी नहीं बोल सकते भाई ऑफ नहीं आएंगे यार आ जाएंगे अभी बहुत तक टाइमली वर्क एनी वर्क